Welcome to Understanding the Principles of Infection. Our learning objectives for today are to list the types and classifications of bacteria, and to define bloodborne pathogens and explain how they are transmitted. We need to understand the principles of infection to help us better prevent infections. Infection control can best be described as how to kill. The suffix or ending term, cidal, means to kill. Bactericidal means to kill bacteria. Tuberculocidal means to kill tuberculosis. Virucidal means to kill viruses. And fungicidal means to kill fungi. There are different methods in which we can kill these nasty little buggers. Those methods include cleaning, disinfecting, and sterilizing. Before we get into the methods of killing these infection-causing problems, we need to understand what these problems are. The first type of germ or microbe that can cause infection that we need to understand are bacteria. There are two categories of bacteria that we need to be aware of. The first is non-pathogenic. Non-pathogenic means not harmful. There are some types of bacteria that are actually good for us, and we do not necessarily want to kill. The second category of bacteria, known as pathogenic bacteria, are harmful. These are the type of bacteria that can cause infections and disease. There are three classifications of pathogenic bacteria. The first of which also has three subclassifications. The first classification of pathogenic bacteria is Coxa. All Coxa bacteria have a round shape. The first subclassification of Coxa bacteria are Staphylococcus. Staphylococcus bacteria cause staph infections. Staphylococcus are round in shape and grow in bunches or clusters like grapes. The second subclassification of Coxa bacteria are Streptococcus. Streptococcus bacteria cause strep throat infections. Streptococcus are round in shape and grow in chains like a string of beads. The third subclassification of Coxa bacteria are Diplococcus. Diplococcus bacteria cause pneumonia and similar infections. Diplococcus are round in shape and grow in pairs. The second category of pathogenic bacteria is bacilli. Bacilli are rod-shaped. Bacilli are responsible for causing tuberculosis and diphtheria. The third type of pathogenic bacteria is Spirilla. Spirilla is a spiral-shaped bacteria and is attributed with causing syphilis and Lyme disease. Bacteria do not just sit and wait to be picked up. Bacteria have motility, meaning the ability to move about on their own. Bacteria are able to move about with one of two different types of appendages. The first of these appendage types are flagella. Flagella is a flag-like tail, or a slender, thread-like structure, and especially microscopic, whip-like appendage that enables many bacteria to swim. The other type of appendage that allow bacteria to move about are called cilia. Cilia are feet-like hairs that help bacteria walk. Bacteria also grow and reproduce. A bacterial cell grows through stages of life, just as humans do. The active stage of bacterial growth can be compared to the birth, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood stages of a human life cycle. It is during the active stage that bacteria will eat and grow. Bacteria prefer warm, dark, and damp places. Bacteria reproduce by binary fission. Simply put, binary fission means one cell will divide into two cells. Once divided, those cells are known as daughter cells. Cells divide every 20 to 60 minutes, in the proper conditions. Bacterial cells also have an inactive or spore-forming stage. During this stage, bacteria form an outer covering that protects the bacteria from unfavorable conditions. This protective covering is called a bacterial spore. It is much like the shell that protects the turtle. Bacteria in spore form can withstand long periods of famine, dryness, and unsuitable temperatures. Much like a bear hibernating during the winter. Remember, pathogenic bacteria cause bacterial infections. Some signs of a bacterial infection are inflammation and pus. There are two different types of infections found within the body. The first is known as a local infection. Local infections are found in only one location of the body, like a pimple. The other type is called a systemic infection. They are found throughout the body, like HIV. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, also known as MRSA, is a highly resistant strain of staph bacteria that can be fatal if left untreated. Contagious or communicable diseases are those diseases that spread easily from one person to another. That was a lot of information on bacteria. Bacteria are only one of the nasty little buggers that can cause infections that we need to be aware of. However, there are a few more. Now, let's take a look at viruses. Viruses cause the common cold and other respiratory and gastrointestinal infections. Some of the most common viruses are measles, mumps, chickenpox, smallpox, rabies, hepatitis, polio, influenza, and HIV. Many of these viruses now have vaccinations, but not all of them. Viruses are difficult to eradicate because they create a biofilm. Biofilm is a sticky, outer covering that glues the microorganisms together, as well as glues them to surfaces. Dental plaque is an example of biofilm. Many products, like antiseptics and disinfectants, cannot penetrate the sticky, outer covering to kill these microbes. Viruses are also known as bloodborne pathogens. They are disease-causing microorganisms that are carried in the blood or body fluids. Some examples include hepatitis, human papillomavirus, or HPV, and human immunodeficiency virus, better known as HIV. Hepatitis has been identified in 3 different forms: hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Hepatitis B is the most difficult to kill on surfaces. Be sure to check your disinfectants and ensure it is effective against hepatitis B. Hepatitis B and hepatitis C are spread from person to person via blood or body fluids. The human papillomavirus causes warts. The HIV virus causes AIDS. A person cannot be infected with HIV or AIDS by simple physical contact. HIV and AIDS can only be spread from person to person through blood or body fluid. A person can be affected with AIDS for many years with no symptoms. AIDS breaks down the person's immune system. AIDS does not kill the person. The cold, flu or other infection will kill the person infected with AIDS because the immune system cannot attack the infection. Now, let's discuss fungi. Fungi creates mold, mildew, and yeast. Fungi is responsible for infections such as Tinea barba, a fungal infection that affects the bearded area of the face. Tinea capitis, a fungal infection of the scalp. And Tinea pedis is a ringworm, fungal infection of the feet. Folliculitis barba is similar to other fungal infections, but it is actually a Staphylococcus bacterial infection of the hair follicles. Parasites are external creatures, similar to insects, that need a host from which to feed. Some examples of parasites are head lice and scabies. Head lice are itch mites that infest the scalp area. Scabies are an itch mite that burrow under the skin. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites are all organisms that can cause many different types of infections. Our immune systems help us to fight off infections once we become infected. We have 2 types of immunity that help our bodies fight infections. Natural immunity is the type of immunity that you are born with. It is mostly composed of immunities that your mother had in her immune system when she was pregnant with you. Acquired immunity is the immunity you have built up by being exposed to various infections, as well as getting vaccinated against certain diseases.